Oh, yeah, all right. How's it going? I'm Grant, you're you. This is the Doodle Review coming through with a new album to give a spin, chat some fraff, and assign an arbitrary score to. Today we're talking about the new album from singer-songwriter rapper Matt Champion. Now, you may not be familiar with the name Matt Champion, but maybe the name BROCKHAMPTON rings a few more bells. The boy band meets rap squad meets art collective made quite an impact in the mid to late 2010s, releasing mixtape after mixtape, album after album, video after video, until completely burning out and sadly disassembling a couple of years ago. Much like Wu-Tang and similar collectives though, the bittersweet upside of Brockhampton's demise is the wealth of solo material and projects we look poised to receive from all of the talented members. Late last year, the de facto leader of the former band, Kevin Abstract, put out a surprisingly great alternative rock meets R&B record called Blanket, and as of March this year, we can now add Mika's Laundry by Matt Champion to the extended family of albums. Being one of the strongest rappers in the Brockhampton collective, much like I was with Kevin Abstract's album, I was surprised that by and large this is not a rap album. To be fair, part of Brockhampton's charm was always the group's many layers of diversity, from the members to the influences that they pull from. So the fact that these emerging solo projects would push on genre boundaries shouldn't actually come as much of a surprise. Mika's Laundry though is a pretty weird, and I mean that in the best kind of way, a pretty weird fusion of modern R&B, indie folk, country at certain points, and 80s funk pop with occasional spells of hip hop. A track called G-Biv is the only out and out rap song in the bunch, offering a nod to some of the darker moments of the Brockhampton discography, with some unsettling stuttered vocals, heavy bassy drum hits, and fragile like broken panpipe or flute sounds forming the main melody of the beat. Divorced from the Brockhampton connection, you might say this track brings together the lyrical vibe of an old Odd Future track with a slightly drier Travis Scott tonality. Its inclusion on the record is kind of hard to fathom because it's like nothing else on the entire album and comes after the first of a couple Prince-like 80s synth pop funk jams in Steel and Before the Tender Purify. It's escorted into the latter track with a rousing American Dream-like piano interlude, but it's still a very left field inclusion, and yet I don't dislike it. If anything, like a lot of the unusual choices of genre fusions on the record, it actually works by being so bizarre. The other moments of rap on the album are kind of smuggled in more of an R&B style, so they're like half sung, half spoken, occasionally rhythmic type of deliveries on tracks like Aphid and Code Red. It all works great. I think the only downside is that Champion proved himself to be really one of the most talented rappers in the Brockhampton days, so it's kind of tempting, especially on first listen, to say that we're missing out here. That is until you start really delving into the bulk of what Mika's Laundry has to offer. Tracks like Everybody Likes You are so weird sounding and yet totally spellbinding. This is a track that offers the type of genre fusions I've been talking about. It has a deep R&B beat carrying the low end in the drum and bass, while over the top we have these separated acoustic and electric guitar strums carrying the main chord progression. These parts can't make up their mind if they're playing a folk or a neo-soul track. It's almost like someone has taken a guitar demo and completely dismantled and scattered all of the parts over this core beat. The final track, Meeting You, does a similar thing with these deconstructed, separated and even reversed guitar parts, with Champion's fragile, manipulated but soulful vocals floating over the top. And it's here in moments like these that I'm reminded of an artist like Alex G. Elsewhere on the softer side of things, there is the track Project, which brings in a touch of that country flavour. But while this one might have more of a conventional guitar track, the vocals are phasing in and out of a sort of vocoder effect, and there are these synth tones that sound like radio static tuning in that kind of flip your expectations and once again create something super unique. Before I go any further though, we have to talk about the absolute jams on this record. I've made a couple of mentions towards some crazy 80s funk pop, and I just want to circle back to that and emphasize that one, you did hear that right, and two, I'm not exaggerating. Steel is the first of such offerings, with a retro sequenced bass synth as the core driver of the progression, with these occasional flourishes of piano punctuating each turnaround. And Champion delivering some great falsetto on top of this kind of throwback banger. Of course, because it's on this album, there's also some weirdness. In this case, it's a very stop-start arrangement that somehow doesn't kill any of the momentum, and these fleeting hypnagogic samples recalling like One-A-Trick's Point Never. Aren't You Excited nods back to this later on in the track list, but it's, of all track titles, it's the track Slug that is the absolute banger in this vein. It's bookended by these almost like Wii Sport soundtrack segments, but in between is a huge falsetto hook from Champion over the top of some classic bouncing octave hitting disco bass guitar runs, and this one's an absolute tune. Again, on paper, is there any reason it should work right next to the aforementioned deconstructed folk R&B of Everybody Likes You? No, but somehow it does. One somewhat negative, depending on how you look at it, critique I have of the record, and I picked up the same thing on the Kevin Abstract record, is that songwriting wise there's a real lack of bridge parts in these songs. There are definitely instrumental breaks, but very few songs that take us through the verse chorus cycle and then into a new segment that modulates the progression and either elevates us up or takes us down as the listener. And I think, having observed this on both of these Brockhampton solo projects now, a thought has occurred to me that this could actually be a byproduct of these songwriters coming from a hip-hop background rather than a quote-unquote traditional songwriting genre. When musicians usually create within these genre frameworks, whether that be, pop, folk, indie or rock, they're usually drawing from a particular rule book that kind of got entrenched in the transition from blues to rock and roll to pop in the 50s and 60s. Now, in 2024, after basically 2 decades of hip-hop being the dominant mainstream genre, we're starting to see artists come through that genre first because they love it, and then start to branch out into pop, folk and rock. And as a result, this new generation are naturally bypassing a lot of the rules of traditional songwriting. In hip-hop you don't really have bridges, you have beat switches. And when I come to think of it that way, I actually start to think that's a really cool thing. It also makes me think that we probably wouldn't have the crazy genre fusions we're starting to now get without these artists having come from a genre like hip-hop and breaking these so-called rules. So where I might be tempted to criticize this lack of something you might consider so sacred, I'm now starting to potentially see it as a real benefit. To use some corporate jargon I kind of hate, but it's apt here, it might be a feature and not a bug. Overall, maybe one track, Slow Motion, is a bit on the earnest side for me. I think this album is amazing. It's forward thinking, kind of avant-garde, but also really soulful, occasionally timeless sounding, and has bangers. I'm going to give this one an 8.9 and knock it on the head. That's what I think though. What are you saying? Let me know in the comments below. Check out my Kevin Abstract review, which is linked in the description below. Subscribe, share some thoughts, show some love, or just hurl some abuse in the comments section, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers, mate.